Welcome back to Drowsy Tales Daily. Tonight I have 35 incredible stories from Reddit about college and university scandals where students, professors, and administrators engaged in shocking academic fraud, financial schemes, and betrayals that exposed the dark underbelly of higher education and destroyed careers in pursuit of money and power. Our first story comes from a university student who discovered their economics professor was systematically selling grades to wealthy students in exchange for substantial cash payments while maintaining the appearance of fair academic evaluation and merit-based grading. The professor had been operating a sophisticated grade manipulation scheme where students could purchase improved test scores and final grades through under-the-table payments that would ensure academic success regardless of actual performance or knowledge mastery. The grade-selling operation involved careful selection of wealthy students who could afford premium pricing for academic advantages while maintaining enough legitimate grading to avoid immediate detection by university administration and academic oversight committees. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting students from affluent families who were desperate to maintain high GPAs for graduate school applications and professional opportunities while avoiding the effort required for legitimate academic achievement and performance improvement. The scheme extended to creating false documentation and grade justifications that would support fraudulent academic performance while concealing the cash payment system that was actually determining student grades rather than academic merit and coursework quality. The professor had also been recruiting graduate assistants to help identify potential customers and manage payment collection while sharing proceeds from the grade-selling operation that violated fundamental academic integrity principles and university policies. The grade-selling scheme was discovered when a student who couldn't afford the payments recorded conversations about grade purchasing and reported the systematic academic fraud to university authorities, leading to investigation that revealed extensive grade manipulation and cash payment documentation that exposed years of academic corruption. Our second story involves a college student who was systematically exploiting fake disability accommodations to gain unfair advantages on exams and assignments while claiming learning disabilities and medical conditions that didn't actually exist. The student had researched disability accommodation procedures and had created false medical documentation that would justify extended test time, private testing environments, and reduced coursework requirements that provided significant academic advantages over other students. The fake disability scheme involved sophisticated manipulation of medical records and accommodation requests while avoiding detection through disability services oversight and medical verification processes that should have identified fraudulent disability claims and accommodation abuse. The student had been particularly focused on obtaining accommodations that would provide maximum academic advantage while maintaining enough believable medical documentation to avoid immediate scrutiny from disability services staff and medical professionals who were responsible for verifying legitimate accommodation needs. The scheme extended to recruiting accomplices who would pose as medical professionals and provide false disability documentation while sharing information about accommodation loopholes and verification weaknesses that could be exploited for academic advantage. The student had also been coaching other students on how to fabricate disability claims while building a network of fake accommodation recipients who could provide mutual support and verification for fraudulent disability schemes. The fake disability accommodation fraud was discovered when disability services staff noticed suspicious patterns in accommodation requests and medical documentation, leading to investigation that revealed systematic accommodation abuse and false medical claims that violated disability protection laws and university academic integrity policies. Our third story comes from prospective college students who discovered a university admissions officer was systematically accepting bribes and special payments to guarantee admission for unqualified applicants while manipulating the admissions process to favor students who could pay for preferential treatment. The admissions officer had been operating a comprehensive bribery system where wealthy families could purchase admission slots for their children regardless of academic qualifications or merit-based evaluation criteria that should have determined university acceptance. The admissions bribery scheme involved sophisticated manipulation of application review processes and admission criteria while concealing payment arrangements that violated fair admissions practices and equal opportunity principles in higher education access. The officer had been particularly focused on targeting families with substantial financial resources who were willing to pay premium prices for guaranteed admission while maintaining enough legitimate admissions decisions to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and admissions committee review processes. The scheme extended to creating false application enhancements and academic credential inflation that would justify admission decisions for unqualified students, while concealing the bribery payments that were actually determining acceptance rather than legitimate academic merit and qualification assessment. The officer had also been working with corrupt consultants and application services who would help identify potential bribery customers while facilitating payment collection and admission guarantee arrangements that systematically undermined fair admissions practices. The admissions bribery operation was discovered when a rejected qualified student investigated admission patterns and discovered evidence of systematic bribery and preferential treatment that violated federal education laws and university admission policies. Our fourth story involves a university professor who was systematically plagiarizing student research and academic work to publish under their own name while claiming original scholarship and research contributions that were actually developed by students and graduate assistants. The professor had been stealing student thesis projects, research papers, and innovative ideas while rewriting and reformatting the work to appear as original faculty research that would enhance their academic reputation and career advancement opportunities. The student research plagiarism scheme involved sophisticated theft of intellectual property and academic work while maintaining enough legitimate research activity to avoid immediate detection by academic peers and university research oversight committees that monitored faculty scholarship and publication integrity. The professor had been particularly focused on stealing the most innovative and publishable student work while ensuring that original student authors wouldn't have opportunities to publish their own research or receive appropriate academic credit for their intellectual contributions and scholarly development. The scheme extended to manipulating research supervision and mentorship relationships to gain access to student work while using academic authority to prevent students from pursuing independent publication or challenging faculty appropriation of their intellectual property and research innovations. The professor had also been working with complicit academic journals and publication networks that would facilitate plagiarized research publication while avoiding rigorous peer review and originality verification that should have identified stolen student work and intellectual property theft. The student research plagiarism was discovered when a graduate student found their thesis research published under the professor's name and contacted academic integrity officials, leading to investigation that revealed systematic intellectual property theft and academic plagiarism spanning multiple years and student victims. Our fifth story comes from university financial aid staff who discovered a sophisticated student identity theft ring that was systematically stealing personal information from financial aid applications to create fraudulent student identities and steal education benefits and loan funding. The identity theft operation involved recruiting accomplices with access to student records and financial aid processing systems who could harvest personal information including social security numbers, family financial data, and academic credentials that would be used to create false student identities and fraudulent aid applications. The student identity theft scheme involved comprehensive exploitation of financial aid systems and student record databases while creating false student profiles and academic histories that would qualify for substantial education benefits and loan funding that was actually being stolen rather than legitimately awarded to qualified students. The operation had been particularly focused on targeting high-value financial aid programs and education benefits while creating believable student profiles that would pass routine verification and eligibility screening processes that should have identified fraudulent applications and identity theft activities. The scheme extended to creating networks of fake students and false academic enrollment that would support ongoing identity theft and benefit fraud while avoiding detection through financial aid oversight and student verification procedures that were being systematically circumvented through insider access and document manipulation. The ring had also been recruiting legitimate students to provide personal information and assist with identity theft activities while sharing proceeds from stolen education benefits and fraudulent loan funding that was being obtained through systematic exploitation of financial aid programs and student assistance systems. The student identity theft ring was discovered when financial aid auditors noticed suspicious application patterns and enrollment anomalies, leading to investigation that revealed extensive identity theft and systematic fraud that had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars in education benefits and student loan funding. Our sixth story involves a university dean who was systematically embezzling scholarship funds and endowment money that was designated for student financial assistance while creating false expenditure records and scholarship distributions that concealed ongoing theft of education funding intended to support student academic achievement. The dean had been redirecting scholarship payments and endowment distributions into personal accounts while creating fraudulent documentation that would show legitimate scholarship awards and student assistance distributions that were actually being stolen rather than provided to qualified student recipients. The scholarship embezzlement scheme involved sophisticated manipulation of financial systems and fund management processes while maintaining enough legitimate scholarship distributions to avoid immediate detection by university financial oversight and donor monitoring that should have identified missing funds and fraudulent expenditure reporting. The dean had been particularly focused on stealing from scholarship programs with minimal oversight and donor involvement while ensuring that enough visible scholarship activity would continue to maintain program credibility and avoid questions from benefactors and university administration about fund management and distribution practices. The scheme extended to creating false student records and scholarship recipient documentation that would justify missing funds while actually providing no student assistance or educational support despite substantial endowment and donation funding that was designated for student financial aid and academic opportunity enhancement. The dean had also been manipulating endowment reporting and donor communications to conceal theft while maintaining fundraising activities and donor relationships that continued to generate scholarship funding that was being embezzled rather than distributed to students according to donor intentions and scholarship program requirements. The scholarship embezzlement was discovered when donors requested specific information about scholarship recipients and discovered discrepancies between reported distributions and actual student assistance, leading to financial investigation that revealed systematic theft of education funding and scholarship money. Our seventh story comes from students who discovered their professor was operating a fake online degree mill while using university resources and academic credentials to sell fraudulent diplomas and certificates to individuals seeking academic credentials without legitimate education or coursework completion. The professor had been creating false online education programs and degree certification systems while using their university position and academic reputation to provide credibility for fraudulent educational services that had no legitimate academic value or accreditation status. The fake degree mill operation involved sophisticated website creation and credential documentation while maintaining enough connection to legitimate university activities to avoid immediate detection by academic authorities and accreditation oversight organizations that monitored educational quality and degree program integrity. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting individuals who needed academic credentials for employment or professional advancement while avoiding rigorous education requirements and coursework completion that would be necessary for legitimate degree attainment and academic achievement. The scheme extended to creating networks of fake students and fraudulent academic records that would support degree mill operations while providing false verification and accreditation claims that would make fraudulent degrees appear legitimate to employers and professional organizations that relied on academic credential verification. The professor had also been recruiting accomplices among university staff and academic professionals who would help provide credibility and verification for fake degree programs while sharing proceeds from fraudulent diploma sales and fake education services that violated educational standards and professional accreditation requirements. The fake degree mill was discovered when employers began questioning credential authenticity and accreditation agencies investigated suspicious degree claims, leading to exposure of systematic educational fraud and fake credential production that had deceived hundreds of degree purchasers and employers. Our eighth story involves a group of college students who organized a comprehensive cheating ring that systematically stole exam answers and test materials while distributing advanced test information to paying customers who could purchase academic advantages without legitimate study or knowledge mastery. The cheating ring had developed sophisticated methods for obtaining advanced copies of exams and assignments while recruiting accomplices among university staff and student workers who had access to test materials and academic planning information that could be exploited for cheating purposes. The stolen exam scheme involved comprehensive exploitation of academic security systems and test administration procedures while creating distribution networks that would provide advanced test information to students willing to pay for unfair academic advantages and guaranteed test performance. The ring had been particularly focused on targeting high-stakes exams and competitive courses where test performance would significantly impact academic outcomes and professional opportunities while maintaining enough operational security to avoid immediate detection by professors and academic integrity monitoring systems. The scheme extended to creating sophisticated communication networks and payment systems that would facilitate cheating coordination while avoiding detection through university oversight and academic misconduct investigation procedures that were designed to identify collaborative cheating and test security violations. The ring had also been expanding operations to include multiple universities and academic institutions while building networks of student customers and staff accomplices who could provide ongoing access to test materials and academic security information that would support large-scale cheating operations. The stolen exam ring was discovered when a professor noticed suspicious similarities in student answers and launched an investigation that revealed extensive cheating coordination and systematic test security violations that had compromised academic integrity across multiple courses and institutions. Our ninth story comes from a university athletics department that discovered their head coach was systematically accepting bribes to recruit unqualified athletes while manipulating admissions processes and athletic scholarship distributions to favor students whose families could pay for preferential treatment in sports programs. The coach had been operating a comprehensive bribery system where wealthy families could purchase athletic roster spots and scholarship opportunities for their children regardless of actual athletic ability or sports performance that should have determined team selection and scholarship awards. The athletic recruitment bribery involved sophisticated manipulation of recruitment evaluation and scholarship distribution while concealing payment arrangements that violated athletic program integrity and fair competition principles in university sports programs. The coach had been particularly focused on targeting families with substantial financial resources who were desperate to secure athletic scholarships and university admission through sports participation while maintaining enough legitimate recruitment to avoid immediate detection by athletic department oversight and NCAA compliance monitoring. The scheme extended to creating false athletic performance records and recruitment justifications that would support admission and scholarship decisions for unqualified athletes, while concealing bribery payments that were actually determining roster selections rather than legitimate athletic merit and performance evaluation. The coach had also been working with corrupt recruitment services and athletic consultants who would help identify potential bribery customers while facilitating payment collection and athletic program access that systematically undermined fair competition and merit-based athletic selection. The athletic recruitment bribery was discovered when qualified athletes who were rejected investigated selection processes and found evidence of systematic corruption and preferential treatment that violated NCAA regulations and university athletic program policies. Our 10th story involves a university professor who was requiring students to purchase overpriced textbooks and course materials that were personally authored and published by the professor while creating artificial academic requirements that would generate substantial personal profits from mandatory student purchases. The professor had been manipulating course curriculum and reading requirements to mandate purchase of expensive textbooks and materials that provided minimal educational value while generating substantial royalty payments and personal income from captive student customers who had no choice but to purchase required materials. The textbook profiteering scheme involved systematic exploitation of academic authority and student financial vulnerability while creating artificial course requirements that would maximize personal profits rather than educational value or student learning outcomes that should have guided curriculum development and material selection. The professor had been particularly focused on creating expensive custom textbooks and course packets that couldn't be purchased, used, or obtained through alternative sources while ensuring that course success would depend on material access that could only be obtained through expensive purchases from professor-controlled sources. The scheme extended to manipulating course structure and assignment requirements to ensure that textbook purchases would be absolutely necessary for academic success while avoiding obvious conflicts of interest that might trigger university oversight. An ethical review of professor business activities and student financial exploitation. The professor had also been working with complicit publishers and printing services to inflate textbook prices and limit alternative purchasing options while maximizing profits from mandatory student purchases that represented significant financial burden for students already struggling with education costs and university expenses. The textbook profiteering was discovered when students organized to protest excessive course material costs and discovered systematic price manipulation and artificial requirement creation that violated university policies regarding faculty conflicts of interest and student financial exploitation. Our 11th story comes from international students who discovered a sophisticated loan fraud scheme that was systematically targeting foreign students with fraudulent financial aid and education loan programs, while stealing personal information and education funding that was designated for legitimate international student support. The loan fraud operation involved recruiting accomplices with access to international student services and financial aid processing who could identify vulnerable students and exploit their limited knowledge of American financial systems and education funding procedures to conduct systematic fraud and identity theft. The international student loan fraud involved comprehensive exploitation of student vulnerability and financial need, while creating false loan programs and financial assistance opportunities that would actually steal student information and funding rather than provide legitimate education financing and academic support. The operation had been particularly focused on targeting students from wealthy families and countries with substantial education funding while creating believable loan programs and financial assistance options that would attract desperate students and provide access to substantial financial resources and personal information. The scheme extended to creating networks of fake financial institutions and education loan services that would appear legitimate to international students while actually conducting systematic fraud and identity theft that exploited student trust and financial desperation for education funding and academic opportunity. The ring had also been working with corrupt education consultants and student services staff who would help identify potential victims and facilitate fraud operations while sharing proceeds from stolen education funding and fraudulent loan programs that targeted vulnerable international student populations. The international student loan fraud was discovered when students began experiencing financial problems and identity theft following loan applications, leading to investigation that revealed systematic fraud targeting international students and exploitation of education funding programs. Our 12th story involves a university registrar who was systematically falsifying student transcripts and academic records in exchange for cash payments while manipulating graduation requirements and course completion records to provide fraudulent academic credentials for students who hadn't actually completed required coursework. The registrar had been operating a comprehensive transcript manipulation service where students could purchase grade improvements, course completion records, and even entire degree certifications without actually attending classes or completing academic requirements that should have been necessary for legitimate academic achievement. The transcript falsification scheme involved sophisticated manipulation of student information systems and academic record databases while maintaining enough legitimate record keeping to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and academic auditing procedures that monitored transcript accuracy and graduation requirement compliance. The registrar had been particularly focused on targeting students who were failing courses or had missed graduation requirements while ensuring that fraudulent transcripts would pass routine verification and employer background checks that relied on official university academic records and transcript authentication. The scheme extended to creating false course enrollment records and professor verification that would support fraudulent academic achievements while concealing the fact that students had purchased academic credentials rather than earning them through legitimate coursework and academic performance that should have determined graduation eligibility. The registrar had also been working with accomplices in other universities and academic institutions to provide mutual transcript verification and academic record support that would make fraudulent credentials appear legitimate across multiple educational institutions and verification systems. The transcript falsification operation was discovered when employers began questioning academic credential authenticity and university auditors investigated discrepancies in graduation records, leading to exposure of systematic academic fraud and false credential production. Our 13th story comes from university students who discovered their professor was systematically requiring students to purchase expensive laboratory equipment and course materials from a company secretly owned by the professor while creating artificial academic requirements that would generate substantial personal profits from mandatory student purchases of overpriced educational supplies. The professor had been manipulating laboratory course requirements and research project specifications to mandate purchase of expensive equipment and materials that provided minimal educational value while generating substantial personal income from captive student customers who had no choice but to purchase required supplies from professor-controlled sources. The laboratory equipment profiteering involved systematic exploitation of academic authority and student financial vulnerability while creating artificial course requirements that would maximize personal profits rather than educational value or student learning outcomes that should have guided curriculum development and material selection for academic laboratory instruction. The professor had been particularly focused on creating expensive specialized equipment requirements and custom laboratory materials that couldn't be obtained through alternative sources while ensuring that course success would depend on equipment access that could only be obtained through expensive purchases from professor-owned companies and supply services. The scheme extended to manipulating laboratory procedures and research project requirements to ensure that equipment purchases would be absolutely necessary for academic success, while avoiding obvious conflicts of interest that might trigger university oversight and ethical review of professor business activities and student financial exploitation through mandatory course material purchases. The professor had also been working with complicit suppliers and equipment manufacturers to inflate prices and limit alternative purchasing options while maximizing profits from mandatory student purchases that represented significant financial burden for students already struggling with education costs and laboratory course expenses that should have been reasonable and educationally justified. The laboratory equipment profiteering was discovered when students organized to protest excessive course material costs and discovered systematic price manipulation and artificial requirement creation that violated university policies regarding faculty conflicts of interest and student financial exploitation. Our 14th story involves a tech-savvy student who was using sophisticated deep fake technology and AI manipulation to cheat on online exams, while creating false video presentations and assignment submissions that appeared to demonstrate knowledge and skills that the student didn't actually possess. The student had developed advanced technical capabilities for creating convincing fake video content and digital manipulation that would allow them to appear to be taking exams and completing assignments while actually using artificial intelligence and pre-recorded content to generate responses and academic work. The deep fake cheating scheme involved sophisticated technology exploitation and digital manipulation while avoiding detection through online proctoring systems and academic integrity monitoring that wasn't designed to identify advanced artificial intelligence cheating and digital content manipulation that represented new forms of academic dishonesty. The student had been particularly focused on targeting online courses and remote learning environments where digital manipulation would be most effective while ensuring that fake content would pass routine verification and professor review that relied on standard academic integrity assessment rather than advanced technology fraud detection. The scheme extended to creating networks of students who could share deep fake technology and AI cheating methods, while developing increasingly sophisticated digital manipulation techniques that would stay ahead of university detection systems and academic integrity monitoring that was struggling to address emerging technology-based cheating methods. The student had also been selling deepfake services and AI cheating assistance to other students while building profitable business around academic fraud and technology manipulation that exploited weaknesses in remote learning security and online education integrity systems. The deep fake cheating operation was discovered when technical analysis of submitted work revealed artificial intelligence generation and digital manipulation patterns that exposed systematic technology-based academic fraud. Our 15th story comes from university oversight authorities who discovered the university president was systematically inflating enrollment numbers and student population statistics to increase federal funding and state education appropriations while creating false student records and registration data that misrepresented actual university attendance and academic activity. The president had been manipulating enrollment reporting and student population counts to maximize government funding and education grants, while creating artificial student records that would inflate university size and academic program participation beyond actual enrollment and attendance levels. The enrollment inflation fraud involved sophisticated manipulation of student information systems and reporting databases while maintaining enough legitimate enrollment activity to avoid immediate detection by federal oversight and state education auditing that monitored university funding eligibility and enrollment verification requirements. The president had been particularly focused on targeting funding programs that provided substantial per-student payments while ensuring that inflated enrollment numbers would generate maximum government funding and education appropriations without providing corresponding educational services or academic program expansion. The scheme extended to creating networks of fake students and false academic records that would support enrollment inflation while avoiding detection through routine auditing and verification procedures that relied on university-provided data and internal reporting systems that were being systematically manipulated. The president had also been working with complicit administration staff and record-keeping personnel who would help maintain false enrollment data while sharing benefits from increased funding and education appropriations that were being obtained through systematic misrepresentation of university size and student population. The enrollment inflation fraud was discovered when federal auditors conducted independent verification of student records and discovered massive discrepancies between reported enrollment and actual student attendance, leading to investigation that revealed systematic funding fraud and false reporting. Our 16th story involves a university professor who was operating an illegal tutoring business during official class time, while using university facilities and resources to provide private tutoring services that competed with legitimate university tutoring programs and violated employment obligations and conflict of interest policies. The professor had been conducting private tutoring sessions in university classrooms and offices while using university equipment and materials to provide educational services that generated substantial personal income outside of official academic responsibilities and employment agreements. The illegal tutoring business involved systematic exploitation of university resources and official class time while avoiding oversight and detection through academic administration and employment monitoring that should have identified unauthorized business activities and resource misuse that violated university policies and employment contracts. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting students who needed intensive academic support, while ensuring that private tutoring would provide superior assistance compared to official university tutoring services that were being undermined through resource diversion and competition from unauthorized private services. The scheme extended to recruiting graduate students and teaching assistants to help provide tutoring services while sharing profits from private tutoring that used university resources and competed directly with official academic support programs that were being damaged by unauthorized competition and resource diversion. The professor had also been manipulating class schedules and academic requirements to create demand for private tutoring while ensuring that course difficulty would drive students toward expensive private assistance rather than free university tutoring services that were available through official academic support programs. The illegal tutoring business was discovered when university administration noticed unauthorized facility usage and discovered systematic misuse of university resources for private business activities that violated employment policies and academic integrity standards. Our 17th story comes from University Security, who discovered a student was systematically selling dormitory access codes and security information to non-students while creating safety risks and unauthorized building access that violated campus security protocols and endangered student safety and property protection. The student had been exploiting their legitimate dormitory access and security knowledge to provide unauthorized building entry for non-students who were willing to pay for campus access and dormitory facilities usage without proper registration or security clearance procedures. The access code selling scheme involved systematic security violation and unauthorized access facilitation while avoiding detection through campus security monitoring and dormitory oversight that relied on student cooperation and security protocol compliance to maintain safe residential environments. The student had been particularly focused on targeting individuals who wanted temporary campus access for parties and social events while ensuring that unauthorized access would avoid immediate detection by security staff and resident advisors who were responsible for monitoring dormitory safety and access control procedures. The scheme extended to recruiting accomplices among other students who could provide additional access codes and security information while sharing profits from unauthorized access sales that created ongoing security risks and potential danger for legitimate dormitory residents and campus community members. The student had also been providing detailed campus security information and building layout details that would help unauthorized individuals avoid detection while accessing restricted areas and student facilities that were supposed to be protected through comprehensive security protocols and access control systems. The access code selling operation was discovered when security staff noticed unusual building access patterns and investigated unauthorized entry incidents that revealed systematic security violations and access code sales. Our 18th story involves a university financial aid officer who was systematically stealing emergency funds and crisis assistance money that was designated for students experiencing financial hardships while creating false disbursement records that concealed ongoing theft of emergency assistance funding. The officer had been redirecting emergency student loans and crisis assistance payments into personal accounts while creating fraudulent documentation that would show legitimate emergency fund distributions to students who were actually receiving no assistance despite qualifying for urgent financial support. The emergency fund theft involved sophisticated manipulation of financial aid systems and crisis assistance programs while maintaining enough legitimate emergency aid distribution to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and student services monitoring that should have identified missing funds and fraudulent disbursement reporting. The officer had been particularly focused on stealing from emergency programs with minimal oversight and verification requirements while ensuring that enough visible emergency assistance would continue to maintain program credibility and avoid questions from Student Services Administration about fund management and distribution practices. The scheme extended to creating false student emergency records and assistance documentation that would justify missing funds while actually providing no student support or crisis assistance despite substantial emergency funding that was designated for student financial crisis intervention and academic continuation support. The officer had also been manipulating emergency assistance reporting and university financial aid communications to conceal theft while maintaining fundraising activities and donor relationships that continued to generate emergency funding that was being embezzled rather than distributed to students according to program requirements and emergency assistance criteria. The emergency fund theft was discovered when students who had applied for emergency assistance reported receiving no help despite approval notifications, leading to financial investigation that revealed systematic theft of emergency student funding. Our 19th story comes from University Research Oversight, who discovered a professor was systematically manipulating research data and experimental results to obtain grant funding and research awards while publishing false scientific findings that misrepresented experimental outcomes and research conclusions. The professor had been falsifying experimental data and research results to support grant applications and funding proposals while creating false scientific publications that would enhance academic reputation and research credibility despite being based on manipulated information and fraudulent experimental work. The research data manipulation involved sophisticated falsification of scientific evidence and experimental documentation while maintaining enough legitimate research activity to avoid immediate detection by peer review and research oversight that relied on academic honesty and scientific integrity in research publication and grant evaluation processes. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting high-value research grants and prestigious academic awards while ensuring that falsified research would pass peer review and scientific evaluation that wasn't designed to detect sophisticated data manipulation and experimental fraud that violated fundamental scientific research principles. The scheme extended to recruiting graduate students and research assistants to help manipulate data while sharing benefits from fraudulent research funding that was obtained through systematic misrepresentation of scientific findings and experimental results that had no legitimate scientific value or research contribution. The professor had also been working with complicit research collaborators and academic journals that would facilitate fraudulent research publication while avoiding rigorous peer review and data verification, that should have identified manipulated experimental results and false scientific conclusions. The research data manipulation was discovered when other researchers attempted to replicate experimental results and discovered inconsistencies that revealed systematic data falsification and research fraud. Our 20th story involves a student who was creating fake internship programs and professional development opportunities while charging other students for participation in internships that didn't actually exist or provide legitimate work experience and career development benefits. The student had been developing sophisticated websites and professional documentation for fake internship programs while collecting substantial payments from students who believed they were purchasing legitimate work experience and professional networking opportunities that would enhance their career prospects and resume credentials. The fake internship scheme involved comprehensive fraud and false professional opportunity creation while avoiding detection through career services oversight and internship program monitoring that relied on student reporting and employer verification that was being systematically circumvented through false documentation and fraudulent program claims. The student had been particularly focused on targeting students who were desperate for internship experience and professional development opportunities while ensuring that fake programs would appear legitimate through professional websites and documentation that would convince students and parents of internship authenticity and career value. The scheme extended to creating networks of fake employers and professional contacts who would provide verification and references for fraudulent internship programs, while maintaining elaborate deception that would support ongoing fraud and student exploitation through false career development and professional opportunity claims. The student had also been recruiting accomplices who would help maintain fake internship programs while sharing profits from fraudulent career services that exploited student career anxiety and professional development needs through systematic deception and false opportunity creation. The fake internship scheme was discovered when students began questioning lack of actual work experience and investigated program authenticity, leading to exposure of systematic fraud and false professional development programs. Our 21st story comes from University Construction Oversight, who discovered a board member was systematically taking kickbacks and bribes from construction contractors while manipulating bidding processes and project awards to favor companies that would provide substantial personal payments in exchange for lucrative university construction contracts. The board member had been operating a comprehensive corruption scheme where construction companies could purchase contract awards and project selections through substantial bribery payments while avoiding competitive bidding and merit-based contractor evaluation that should have determined university construction project assignments. The construction kickback scheme involved sophisticated manipulation of bidding processes and contractor evaluation while concealing bribery arrangements that violated university procurement policies and public contracting regulations that were designed to ensure fair competition and cost-effective project completion for university infrastructure development. The board member had been particularly focused on targeting high-value construction projects and infrastructure development contracts while ensuring that preferred contractors would receive project awards regardless of bid quality or cost-effectiveness that should have guided university construction decision-making and project management. The scheme extended to creating false evaluation criteria and project justifications that would support contractor selection decisions while concealing bribery payments that were actually determining project awards rather than legitimate competitive bidding and contractor performance evaluation that should have protected university financial interests. The board member had also been working with corrupt contractors and construction companies who would provide substantial kickback payments while inflating project costs and reducing construction quality that would maximize profits for both the board member and preferred contractors at university expense. The construction kickback scheme was discovered when auditors noticed suspicious bidding patterns and contractor selection decisions that revealed systematic corruption and bribery in university construction procurement and project management. Our 22nd story involves a university professor who was systematically selling recommendation letters and academic references to the highest bidders while undermining the integrity of academic recommendation systems in graduate school application processes that relied on honest professional evaluation and academic assessment. The professor had been creating false recommendation letters and academic references for students who could pay premium prices for positive evaluations regardless of actual academic performance or character qualifications that should have determined recommendation content and professional endorsement decisions. The recommendation letter sales scheme involved systematic corruption of academic evaluation and professional reference systems while maintaining enough legitimate recommendation activity to avoid immediate detection by graduate schools and professional programs that relied on faculty honesty and academic integrity in student evaluation and recommendation processes. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting students who were applying to competitive graduate programs and professional schools while ensuring that purchased recommendations would provide substantial advantages in application processes that relied heavily on faculty evaluation and academic endorsement for admission decisions and program selection. The scheme extended to creating elaborate false academic achievements and character assessments that would support fraudulent recommendations while concealing the payment arrangements that were actually determining recommendation content rather than legitimate academic evaluation and professional assessment that should have guided faculty recommendation writing and student endorsement decisions. The professor had also been working with corrupt academic consultants and application services who would help identify potential recommendation customers while facilitating payment collection and recommendation guarantee arrangements that systematically undermined fair academic evaluation and graduate school admission integrity. The recommendation letter sales operation was discovered when graduate school admission officers noticed suspicious patterns in recommendation letters and investigated faculty recommendation practices, leading to exposure of systematic academic fraud and recommendation corruption. Our 23rd story comes from University Housing Administration, who discovered a student housing coordinator was systematically embezzling residence hall fees and dormitory maintenance funds while creating false maintenance records and housing expenditure reports that concealed ongoing theft of student housing payments and facility improvement funding. The coordinator had been redirecting residence hall fees and dormitory maintenance budgets into personal accounts while creating fraudulent documentation that would show legitimate housing expenditures and facility improvements that were actually never completed despite substantial student payments for dormitory services and residential facility maintenance. The residence hall embezzlement involved sophisticated manipulation of housing financial systems and maintenance reporting while maintaining enough visible facility upkeep to avoid immediate detection by university, housing oversight, and student complaints about dormitory conditions and residential facility quality that should have revealed missing maintenance funding and service deficiencies. The coordinator had been particularly focused on stealing from maintenance programs and facility improvement projects that had minimal student visibility while ensuring that enough obvious housing services would continue to maintain basic dormitory operations and avoid widespread student complaints about residential facility deterioration and service quality problems. The scheme extended to creating false vendor records and maintenance contractor documentation that would justify missing funds while actually providing no facility improvements or residential services despite substantial housing fee collections and maintenance budget allocations that were designated for student residential facility support and dormitory quality enhancement. The coordinator had also been manipulating housing fee reporting and dormitory financial communications to conceal theft while maintaining student housing programs and residential services that continued to collect substantial fees that were being embezzled rather than used for dormitory maintenance and facility improvement according to housing program requirements and student residential service expectations. The residence hall embezzlement was discovered when students complained about deteriorating dormitory conditions and housing auditors investigated maintenance spending discrepancies that revealed systematic theft of student housing fees and maintenance funding. Our 24th story involves a university academic advisor who was systematically steering students toward expensive and unnecessary academic programs while receiving kickbacks from for-profit educational institutions and certification programs that would benefit financially from student enrollment and tuition payments. The advisor had been manipulating academic counseling and degree planning to direct students toward costly programs and educational services that provided substantial commission payments to the advisor while offering minimal educational value or career advancement opportunities for students who were being exploited through false academic guidance and misleading program recommendations. The academic steering scheme involved systematic corruption of student advising and educational guidance, while maintaining enough legitimate counseling to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and student complaint procedures that relied on advisor honesty and student advocacy in academic planning and career development support. The advisor had been particularly focused on targeting students who were uncertain about academic direction and career goals while ensuring that recommended programs would provide maximum commission payments regardless of educational quality or student benefit that should have guided legitimate academic advising and career counseling decisions. The scheme extended to creating false program endorsements and career outcome claims that would convince students to enroll in expensive programs, while concealing the commission arrangements that were actually determining academic recommendations rather than legitimate student interest and educational benefit evaluation that should have guided professional academic advising. The advisor had also been working with corrupt educational institutions and certification programs who would provide substantial kickback payments while targeting vulnerable students through misleading academic guidance and false career advancement promises that exploited student trust and educational aspirations. The academic steering fraud was discovered when students began questioning program quality and investigated advisor recommendations, leading to exposure of systematic educational fraud and student exploitation through corrupt academic guidance. Our 25th story comes from University Campus Security, who discovered a student was organizing a sophisticated prescription drug dealing network while using dormitory facilities and campus events to distribute controlled substances and illegal pharmaceuticals to university students and community members. The student had been exploiting their campus access and student status to operate drug distribution while avoiding detection through university security and law enforcement oversight that relied on campus safety protocols and student conduct monitoring to maintain drug-free educational environments. The prescription drug network involved comprehensive illegal pharmaceutical distribution and controlled substance trafficking while maintaining enough legitimate student activities to avoid immediate suspicion from campus security and university administration that monitored student behavior and campus safety concerns. The student had been particularly focused on targeting students who needed prescription medications for academic performance enhancement while ensuring that drug distribution would avoid immediate detection by security staff and university officials who were responsible for maintaining campus safety and drug-free educational environments. The scheme extended to recruiting accomplices among other students and campus workers who could help distribute drugs while sharing profits from illegal pharmaceutical sales that created serious health risks and legal liability for university students and campus community members who were being exposed to dangerous controlled substances and unregulated medication distribution. The student had also been using campus events and dormitory gatherings to facilitate drug sales while exploiting university facilities and student activities to support illegal pharmaceutical distribution that violated federal drug laws and university campus safety policies. The prescription drug network was discovered when campus security noticed suspicious student behavior and investigated drug-related incidents that revealed systematic controlled substance distribution and illegal pharmaceutical trafficking operations. Our 26th story involves a university librarian who was systematically stealing and selling rare books and valuable historical documents from the university library collection while creating false inventory records that concealed ongoing theft of irreplaceable academic resources and cultural artifacts. The librarian had been exploiting their access to special collections and rare materials to identify and steal valuable books and documents that could be sold to private collectors and antiquarian book dealers for substantial personal profits while avoiding detection through library security and collection management procedures. The rare book theft involved sophisticated manipulation of library inventory systems and collection records while maintaining enough legitimate collection management to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and academic researchers who relied on special collections access for scholarly research and historical investigation. The librarian had been particularly focused on targeting the most valuable and marketable rare materials while ensuring that theft would avoid immediate detection through collection auditing and researcher access requests that might reveal missing books and documents from special collections and historical archives. The scheme extended to creating false provenance documentation and authentication records that would support sale of stolen materials while concealing the theft from university collections and academic resources that were designated for scholarly research and educational preservation rather than personal profit and private collection sales. The librarian had also been working with corrupt book dealers and private collectors who would purchase stolen materials while avoiding questions about ownership verification and collection provenance that should have identified theft from academic institutions and cultural heritage preservation programs. The rare book theft was discovered when researchers requested access to specific materials, and library audits revealed systematic collection losses and inventory discrepancies that exposed ongoing theft of valuable academic resources. Our 27th story comes from university graduate programs who discovered a professor was systematically exploiting graduate students as unpaid personal assistants while using academic authority and degree completion control to force students to provide personal services and household work that had no legitimate academic or research value. The professor had been manipulating graduate student supervision and research requirements to demand personal assistance and domestic services while threatening academic consequences and degree completion delays for students who refused to comply with inappropriate personal service requests that violated student rights and academic employment regulations. The graduate student exploitation involved systematic abuse of academic authority and student vulnerability while maintaining enough legitimate research supervision to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and graduate program monitoring that relied on faculty professionalism and student advocacy in graduate education and research training. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting international graduate students and financially vulnerable students who were dependent on assistantships and research support, while ensuring that personal service demands would be difficult to refuse or report through official university channels and student complaint procedures. The scheme extended to creating academic justifications and research requirements that would disguise personal service demands while actually providing no educational benefit or research training despite substantial student time and effort that should have been directed toward legitimate academic development and scholarly research advancement. The professor had also been threatening students with academic retaliation and degree completion interference for students who showed resistance to personal service demands while using graduation control and recommendation authority to maintain ongoing exploitation and student compliance with inappropriate personal service requirements. The graduate student exploitation was discovered when students coordinated to report systematic abuse and document patterns of inappropriate personal service demands that violated university policies regarding student rights and academic employment standards. Our 28th story involves a tech-savvy student who was systematically hacking university computer systems and grade databases to change academic records and test scores, while selling grade modification services to other students who wanted to improve their academic standing without legitimate coursework completion or academic performance improvement. The student had developed sophisticated computer infiltration capabilities and database manipulation skills that would allow unauthorized access to university information systems and academic record databases while avoiding detection through university cybersecurity and information technology monitoring that was designed to protect academic data integrity and student information security. The grade hacking scheme involved comprehensive exploitation of university technology systems and academic database security while maintaining enough operational security to avoid immediate detection by information technology staff and academic integrity monitoring that relied on system security and access control to protect academic record authenticity and grade reporting accuracy. The student had been particularly focused on targeting high-value grade modifications and academic record changes that would provide substantial academic advantages while ensuring that database modifications would avoid immediate detection through routine system monitoring and academic record auditing that should have identified unauthorized access and data manipulation activities. The scheme extended to creating sophisticated payment systems and customer networks that would facilitate grade modification sales while avoiding detection through university oversight and cybersecurity investigation procedures that were designed to identify unauthorized system access and academic database manipulation. The student had also been expanding hacking operations to include multiple universities and academic institutions, while building networks of customer students and accomplice hackers who could provide ongoing access to academic systems and grade modification services that systematically undermined academic integrity and educational assessment accuracy. The grade hacking operation was discovered when university information technology staff noticed suspicious database access patterns and investigated system security breaches that revealed extensive academic record manipulation and systematic grade modification fraud. Our 29th story comes from University Parking Services, who discovered campus security personnel were systematically selling parking violation dismissals and ticket cancellations to students and faculty members while manipulating parking enforcement databases to generate personal income from parking violation forgiveness services. The security staff had been exploiting their access to parking enforcement systems and violation databases to provide paid ticket dismissal services while avoiding detection through parking services oversight and university administration monitoring that relied on security staff integrity and parking policy enforcement to maintain campus parking regulation compliance. The parking violation sales scheme involved systematic corruption of campus enforcement and parking regulation systems while maintaining enough legitimate parking enforcement to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and parking services administration that monitored parking policy compliance and violation processing procedures. The security personnel had been particularly focused on targeting students and faculty with expensive parking violations while ensuring that ticket dismissal services would avoid immediate detection through parking enforcement auditing and violation tracking systems that should have identified missing violations and unauthorized ticket cancellations. The scheme extended to creating false parking enforcement records and violation justifications that would support ticket dismissals while concealing the payment arrangements that were actually determining parking violation resolution rather than legitimate parking policy enforcement and violation processing that should have maintained fair parking regulation compliance. The security staff had also been working with accomplices in parking services and university administration who would help facilitate ticket dismissals while sharing profits from parking violation sales that systematically undermined campus parking policy enforcement and regulation compliance systems. The parking violation sales operation was discovered when parking services auditors noticed unusual dismissal patterns and investigated ticket cancellation procedures that revealed systematic corruption in parking enforcement and violation processing. Our 30th story involves a university professor who was systematically requiring personal favors and inappropriate services from students in exchange for passing grades and positive academic evaluations while exploiting academic authority and grade control to coerce student compliance with requests that violated professional boundaries and student rights. The professor had been manipulating grading systems and academic evaluation to create situations where students felt pressured to provide personal services and inappropriate favors in order to maintain academic standing and course completion in competitive university programs that were essential for academic advancement and professional development. The personal favor scheme involved systematic abuse of academic authority and student dependency while maintaining enough legitimate academic instruction to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and academic monitoring that relied on faculty professionalism and ethical conduct in student evaluation and academic relationship management. The professor had been particularly focused on targeting vulnerable students who were struggling academically or who were dependent on course completion for graduation requirements while ensuring that personal favor requests would be difficult to refuse or report through official university channels and student complaint procedures. The scheme extended to creating academic justifications and grading requirements that would disguise inappropriate personal service demands while actually providing no educational benefit or legitimate academic assessment despite substantial student compliance and personal service provision that violated student rights and academic integrity principles. The professor had also been threatening students with academic consequences and grade retaliation for students who refused to comply with personal favor requests while using academic authority and evaluation control to maintain ongoing exploitation and student compliance with inappropriate personal service demands. The personal favor scheme was discovered when students coordinated to report systematic abuse and document patterns of inappropriate personal service requirements that violated university policies regarding faculty conduct and student rights protection. Our 31st story comes from University Housing Oversight, who discovered a student was systematically subletting dormitory rooms and residential spaces as illegal rental properties while charging non-students substantial fees for unauthorized campus housing access that violated university residential policies and created safety risks for legitimate dormitory residents. The student had been exploiting their legitimate dormitory access and residential status to operate unauthorized rental services while avoiding detection through university housing monitoring and residential life oversight that relied on student compliance with housing policies and dormitory usage regulations to maintain safe and appropriate residential environments. The illegal dorm rental scheme involved systematic violation of university housing policies and residential facility usage while maintaining enough legitimate dormitory residents to avoid immediate detection by housing staff and residential advisors who were responsible for monitoring dormitory safety and housing policy compliance. The student had been particularly focused on targeting individuals who wanted temporary campus housing access for social events and extended campus visits while ensuring that unauthorized rentals would avoid immediate detection by housing security and residential life staff who monitored dormitory access and residential facility usage. The scheme extended to recruiting accomplices among other students who could help facilitate unauthorized rentals while sharing profits from illegal housing services that created safety risks and policy violations that endangered legitimate dormitory residents and violated university residential facility management principles. The student had also been providing detailed dormitory access information and residential facility layouts that would help unauthorized renters avoid detection while accessing restricted residential areas and student housing facilities that were supposed to be protected through comprehensive housing security and access control systems. The illegal dorm rental operation was discovered when housing staff noticed unusual residential facility usage patterns and investigated unauthorized access incidents that revealed systematic housing policy violations and illegal rental activities. Our 30-second story involves a university fundraiser who was systematically keeping donor contributions and charitable donations that were designated for university programs and student assistance while creating false fundraising records that concealed ongoing theft of charitable funding intended to support educational initiatives and student financial aid. The fundraiser had been redirecting donor payments and charitable contributions into personal accounts while creating fraudulent documentation that would show legitimate donation processing and university program funding that was actually being stolen rather than used for designated educational purposes and student support programs. The donation theft scheme involved sophisticated manipulation of fundraising systems and donor management while maintaining enough legitimate donation processing to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and donor monitoring that should have identified missing funds and fraudulent fundraising reporting. The fundraiser had been particularly focused on stealing from donation programs with minimal oversight and donor involvement while ensuring that enough visible university programs would continue to maintain fundraising credibility and avoid questions from major donors and university administration about fund management and program funding practices. The scheme extended to creating false program records and student assistance documentation that would justify missing donations while actually providing no educational support or university program funding despite substantial charitable contributions that were designated for student assistance and academic program enhancement. The fundraiser had also been manipulating donor communications and university fundraising reporting to conceal theft while maintaining donor relationships and charitable giving programs that continued to generate substantial donations that were being embezzled rather than used for university programs according to donor intentions and charitable giving objectives. The donation theft was discovered when major donors requested specific information about program funding and discovered discrepancies between donation amounts and actual program support, leading to financial investigation that revealed systematic theft of charitable contributions and fundraising fraud. Our 33rd story comes from university academic departments who discovered a professor was systematically stealing intellectual property and research innovations from faculty colleagues while claiming original authorship and academic credit for research work and scholarly contributions that were actually developed by other professors and research staff. The professor had been exploiting their access to departmental research and faculty collaboration to appropriate innovative ideas and academic work while rewriting and reformatting colleague contributions to appear as original research that would enhance personal academic reputation and career advancement opportunities. The intellectual property theft involved sophisticated appropriation of academic work and research innovations while maintaining enough legitimate scholarly activity to avoid immediate detection by academic peers and university research oversight. that relied on faculty integrity and collaborative research ethics in academic publication and scholarly contribution recognition. The professor had been particularly focused on stealing the most innovative and publishable research work while ensuring that original faculty authors wouldn't have opportunities to pursue independent publication or receive appropriate academic credit for their intellectual contributions and scholarly innovations that were being systematically appropriated. The scheme extended to manipulating research collaboration and departmental relationships to gain access to colleague work while using academic authority and institutional position to prevent other faculty from challenging intellectual property, appropriation, and research credit theft that violated fundamental academic integrity and scholarly collaboration principles. The professor had also been working with complicit academic publications and research networks that would facilitate stolen research publication while avoiding rigorous peer review and originality verification that should have identified appropriated faculty work and intellectual property theft from academic colleagues. The intellectual property theft was discovered when faculty colleagues noticed unauthorized use of their research and contacted academic integrity officials, leading to investigation that revealed systematic appropriation of faculty work and scholarly contribution theft. Our 34th story involves a student who was creating fake charitable organizations and fundraising campaigns while exploiting university resources and student sympathy to collect substantial donations for personal use rather than legitimate charitable purposes and community assistance programs. The student had been developing sophisticated websites and promotional materials for fraudulent charities while using university facilities and student networks to promote fake fundraising campaigns that would generate substantial personal income through charitable fraud and donation theft. The fake charity scheme involved comprehensive fraud and false charitable organization creation while avoiding detection through university oversight and student organization monitoring that relied on student honesty and charitable organization legitimacy in campus fundraising and community service activities. The student had been particularly focused on targeting emotionally compelling causes and community needs while ensuring that fake charities would appear legitimate through professional presentation and documentation that would convince donors and supporters of charitable authenticity and community benefit claims. The scheme extended to creating networks of fake volunteers and false charitable activities that would support fraudulent fundraising while maintaining elaborate deception that would support ongoing fraud and donor exploitation through false community service and charitable assistance claims that had no legitimate charitable value or community benefit. The student had also been recruiting accomplices who would help maintain fake charitable organizations while sharing profits from fraudulent fundraising that exploited donor generosity and community concern through systematic deception and false charitable representation. The fake charity scheme was discovered when donors began questioning charitable organization legitimacy and investigated fund usage, leading to exposure of systematic charitable fraud and donation theft. Our final story comes from university administration who discovered an academic department was systematically inflating course requirements and degree completion criteria while manipulating graduation standards to extend student enrollment periods and increase tuition revenue through artificial academic requirement expansion that provided no legitimate educational benefit. The department had been creating unnecessary course requirements and graduation criteria while manipulating degree program structure to force students into extended enrollment periods that would generate substantial additional tuition payments, without corresponding educational value or academic program improvement. The course requirement inflation involved systematic manipulation of academic standards and degree completion criteria while maintaining enough legitimate academic rigor to avoid immediate detection by university oversight and accreditation. Monitoring that relied on academic integrity and educational value in degree program design and graduation requirement establishment. The department had been particularly focused on targeting students who were close to graduation while ensuring that artificial requirement additions would appear academically justified despite providing no educational benefit or degree program enhancement that would warrant extended enrollment and additional tuition payments. The scheme extended to creating false academic justifications and degree program enhancements that would support requirement inflation while actually providing no educational improvement or academic program value despite substantial additional student costs and enrollment extension that exploited student degree completion dependency. The department had also been working with complicit academic advisors and university administration who would help implement requirement inflation while sharing benefits from increased tuition revenue that was being generated through systematic academic requirement manipulation and graduation criteria expansion. The course requirement inflation was discovered when students organized to protest excessive degree requirements and investigated academic program changes that revealed systematic manipulation of graduation standards and artificial requirement expansion designed to increase tuition revenue rather than provide legitimate educational value. As we conclude tonight's journey through these 35 college and university scandal stories, we're reminded that higher education institutions, despite their noble mission of learning and growth, can sometimes harbor individuals who prioritize personal gain over academic integrity and student welfare. These tales from Reddit show us the importance of transparency, accountability, and vigilance in protecting the educational environments that shape our future leaders and professionals. Whether you're a current student, a recent graduate, or someone who has experienced the challenges of higher education, these stories serve as important reminders about the need for strong oversight and ethical standards in academic institutions. Thank you for joining me tonight on Drowsy Tales Daily, and may these stories guide you into peaceful sleep with renewed appreciation for honest education and academic integrity. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you tomorrow night for another collection of fascinating Reddit stories designed to help you drift off to sleep. Until then, sleep well and dream peacefully.